Here we go, shutting the book. Shutting the book. Welcome everyone to the Cuppa of Life Cafe. We are glad that you have joined us once again in the virtual cafe. We're here to tell the athlete's story of Nick and Stephanie. We'll get Kerri to introduce them very soon. Make sure you do say hello when you enter. Hey Lucinda, hey Narissa. Come on everyone, where's your little voices? A little bit quiet. Also make sure that you get ready for making a donation to the Australian Sports Foundation. Again, like what we said at the start, we are doing this and all the talent are coming in to tell their stories. It is all done free of charge to A, inspire you, but B, also to help raise funds for community sport, which are doing it tough at the moment. Who's flicking? Is that you, Kerri?
What am I doing?
Are you flicking my slides?
No, I'm not flicking your slide. Is there a gremlin in your slide deck?
You know what? I reckon someone else in the back room is doing it. What's going on here? I reckon Stephanie and Nick are playing around with my slides. Kerri?
Just tell them off in a sec.
I'll tell them off. I will.
Play nice. It says they play nice.
I say play nice. We don't want any of these little gremlins popping in. We don't like those little gremlins. And finally, please make sure that you tag your gold medal moments today. Also, right now, when all the talent come on, when Stephanie and Nick come on, take a screenshot and share it with your friends. Tell them to get on board. Go to cuppaoflife.com or theathletestory.com.au and get them to join right now. Anyway, enough of me gibbering. Over to you, Kerri. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Well, thank you, Luke. And hi, everyone. Good evening. It's great to see a few of you back again, night after night after night. Today is day 5 of the Summer Olympic Games that would have been. So as you know, the Olympic Games for 2020 have been postponed to next year. So the athlete's story was brought about because I wanted to inspire people with the stories of the amazing athlete friends that I've made in the last 20, almost 30 years over all the Olympic periods. And so tonight, in the Olympic Games that would have been, you would have seen a medal being given out in the rowing, in the men's 4, and also in the pool. Lots more medals given out in the pool. So it's fitting tonight that we have 2 of those athletes with us. So please turn on your mics and your cameras. Nick Green and Stephanie Rice. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, okay. All right, who was it?
Just Steph.
Me. I was looking around, I couldn't hear you. And I was like, maybe I'm not in there. So that was me, sorry.
Steph just wants to, she loves being a host, obviously. Like, you've had a great TV career and, you know, you love being hosts. But tonight, You're the guest. Tonight, we're going to delve into your stories. But guys, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Steph, where are you dialing in from? Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Bris Vegas in my bedroom. Very professional setup going on here. But at least I have a gold medal nearby. So
nice. So we'll have to unpack that in a sec. And Nick, where are you?
I'm in Melbourne, in lockdown, and I haven't left the house in a couple of weeks, so I'm going stir crazy.
Oh no! And I think it's your 11th online meeting or interview
today. It is, yes. I've had lots of video calls today, so I'll just keep rolling them on.
Yeah. So is that like, have you actually left the computer, like that growth on the face? Has that just been growing since you started lockdown?
Pretty much, yes. It's a lockdown thing, and when I have to go back to the office, I better present myself a little bit better. But
oh, well, it looks good. It looks good. I was just saying before, you actually look a lot like my brother right now. So I'm going to take
younger brother. He's really young, isn't he? He's a lot younger than you. Is that right?
Yeah, he's only about 30.
That's it.
So, Nick, where would you have been if the Olympics were on? Would you have been in Tokyo? Would you have been in a pub watching it back here in Australia?
No, I would have been at the Channel 7 studios doing the commentary for the rowing. And I've been to every Olympic game since 1992 summer, and I've been to a couple of Winter Olympics along the way. So I was hoping that this might have been another games I get to go and experience and just enjoy and watch the athletes and soak up the Olympic atmosphere. But and I've done a couple of commentary gigs with Channel 7. I think it was my 4th one that I do, 4th Olympics. And they rang me and said, we want to appoint you and do the commentary. I was like, fantastic. When are we going to Tokyo? He said, well, actually, we're doing it from Melbourne. So that's where I would have been, but comfortably at home at the moment.
So you would have been in a similar situation where you would have been staring at a screen in a little room, commentating, making out you were there.
Absolutely.
And Steph, what about you?
What about me? Sorry, because sorry, Kerri, I can only hear you talking. I can't hear Nick.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah, so I'm not.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the question.
Stephanie,
Sounds like my wife.
Stephanie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, that's because you played with my presentation and I've muted you. No. When you get a second, just Kerri will repeat. Once and you answer the question, when Nick's next, just log off, log back in again, and you'll be
Sure.
okay.
Perfect.
The beauty of live webinar, live. You've been there, Steph. You've been
Totally.
there.
What
So
did you
Steph,
ask?
The question was just, where would you be if the Olympics were on right now? Would you be over there, or would you be at home in a pub at home watching it on TV on your couch?
I would have really hoped to have been in Tokyo. It kind of like, I mean, it was looking like I was going to be there with either broadcast or with sponsors or something. But obviously with everything that changed, early on in the year, all those discussions got held. So I would have loved to have been in Tokyo because I didn't go to Rio in my first Olympics out. So it would have been nice to just be there and experience it all again. For sure.
I know. Look, I was hoping to be there too, hoping for that gig, but I was a bit like,
I know.
I would have been in a box doing the volleyball somewhere in Melbourne.
That would have been. Yeah, I know. It's a shame.
That's okay. Well, look, Stephanie, just to give everyone a background of your Olympic experience, 2 Olympics, 2008, 2012. You won 3 gold medals in your first Olympics in 2008. Yay!
Yay!
Yes. The 200 and 400 medley, and we'll go into that because you're one of those crazy people who are good at everything. And then the gold in the 4x200 free. Tell me, why is it that there's so many amazing swimmers are coming out of Brisbane? Why is
I
that?
know. I think a bit of it has to do with the climate. We train outdoors in Brisbane because the weather is always amazing. But I think sort of like anything really, like once you have a hub of a couple of good people, then people want to be as good as those people and train under those coaches. So they move interstate to train in Brisbane with the amazing coaches that are here. So I think it's kind of formed that a lot of great athletes are from Brisbane or have come from other states or other places to train in Brisbane with the epic coaches. And it's a nice lifestyle. Like Queensland's a nice lifestyle. Like I was always asked to go train at the AIS and I just really couldn't have thought of much worse. Like for swimming indoors and it was cold and like I didn't have to go there, thankfully. So like it was just nice to have a bit of a life and my family around me here in Brisbane.
But we love all you ACT swimmers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you love the cold weather. I'm sure that spurs you on. But Steph, you were one of those athletes, I guess, when you were young because you saw your idol, Susie O'Neill.
Susie.
Yeah. Tell us
what
about
a ledge.
How did your dream start?
Yeah, so I definitely remember watching like very vividly Susie O'Neill competing at the 2000 Olympics. Prior to that, my mum, because I was doing well, I was young. I think I was only like 6 or 7 at the time. And I was into swimming, but not in a competitive sense, just more for fun. And my mum took me to Sydney to watch the Olympic trials. And I remember watching Susie and some of the other swimmers at the time. And I just thought, oh my gosh, that's totally what I want to do. Like I was so inspired and seeing it firsthand just made me like that much more eager to go after that dream. And so that's really where it started. And Susie was always the one that I admired because she's obviously an incredible athlete, but she also just seemed to have such a fun personality and like she had fun with it and with the interviews. And I thought, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to be.
And at the age of like, I think it was by the time you were 17 when you you swam in your first big meet, the Com Games, and you obviously dominated the 200 and 400 medley races there. How did that kind of change things for you? Did that put a bit more pressure on you with the upcoming Olympics? Did you really start to feel it then?
No, not so much then. I mean, in 2006 at the Commonwealth Games, For swimming, they took the top 3 competitors in each event, whereas Olympics and World Championships, they only take the top 2. And basically the top 2 spots in Australia for swimming, you have to be almost a world record holder. Like, it's the 2 girls are so far ahead of the rest of the group in general. So with Commonwealth Games, them allowing a 3rd representative, it just kind of meant that up-and-comers got a bit more of a chance to compete at a high level. And I was one of those athletes that got the 3rd spot for both the 200 and the 400 medley to then go on and compete in Melbourne at the Commonwealth Games. And then I had a huge breakthrough and did, you know, incredible best times and then won 2 gold medals at the Com Games. So I already had done such a huge jump from being like the 3rd in Australia to the best in the Commonwealth. And then it kind of just started enough momentum. But to be super frank, like, my times were at least 10 seconds away from a world record that I was not at all in the mix of like doing well in 2 years' time at an Olympics. It just kind of was a nice progression for me. I just naturally had like another benchmark and another benchmark to slowly work towards and keep me positive and mentally stimulated. Like, I could see the growth happening. And so it kept me interested in it. Whereas I think some athletes sort of plateau a lot. I didn't ever really have a plateau.
Oh, that's awesome. So seeing those little incremental improvements just kept giving you the focus. It didn't put pressure on you at all, though?
No, like enough excitement to work towards the next thing. Really, like, the nervousness started when I broke a world record right before the Olympics at the Olympic trials. That's when it really became real. Like, oh shit, now I'm the best in the world and now the target is on my back. And as an Australian, we all know that's really tough because we love the underdog and we love supporting, you know, the up and comer. And so I guess like to be the one to beat was a completely new scenario for me, and more than anything, a mental game that I had to sort of work around leading into the Beijing Olympics.
Well, we're going to talk about that in a sec. We might let you log
Yeah,
off
let me sign out.
And we'll just chat to Nick while you're going on.
Sounds good.
We're going to talk about your promise.
That's okay. I don't mind.
So, Nick, hopefully you can hear Steph okay.
I can. It's loud and clear.
Awesome. So, dual Olympic gold medalist, Barcelona and Atlanta, where I first met you at my first Olympics. That was your second Olympics. But also 4 times world champ in the coxless 4. You've got to be careful
what you
say
that. Get it right.
What is there, like, what's the difference? What does that mean for the layperson?
Well, in a rowing boat, you've got a number of different, I suppose, combinations of a single or a double or a 4 or an 8. Usually the bigger boats, an 8, have a cox or someone who steers the boat and yells at the athletes to go harder. In our younger days as athletes, we obviously were rowing in boats with a cox and without a cox. And when it got to getting into, I suppose, more elite competition, we had to decide before the Olympics in 1992, did we want to row in a boat that was the coxed 4 or the coxless 4? Now, we chose the coxless 4 because we liked the peace and tranquility. You imagine you're in the middle of Lake Como, rowing away. It's beautiful. George Clooney's in one of his houses looking over at us, and it's just quiet. If we had someone in the boat yelling at us the whole time, it would just ruin the whole ambience. So we got rid of that. Now, little did we know at the time, then the coxed 4 boat class was actually cut from the Olympic Games. And so we made the right choice of going with a boat without a coxswain. So in essence, it's someone who steers the boat. They're usually about 50 kilos. They sit in the boat and you have to drag them over 2,000 meters down a rowing course at full pelt. So we thought, let's chuck them out and do it without them.
Now, do they get a medal as well?
Of course they do. Yeah, absolutely. Well, if they were in the boat with us, they would, but they weren't.
But in the other boats, they would have.
They would, yeah, absolutely. Of course they have.
So you were famously referred to as the awesome foursome. That's what we all know you. And tomorrow night we've got James on with us. But you're first. I picked you first.
Yeah,
so
good.
Number one. Did you guys coin that phrase yourself? Or
no.
No,
we didn't. It's a really good story. There was a journalist called Bruce Eva. And this was back in 1990. So, it's a long, long time ago. And as a young kid, my ambitions as an athlete, I never thought I was going to the Olympics, never thought I was good enough, it was never in my pipe dream. But when I was rowing, my aim was I'd love to row for Australia one day, because living at home and I was a student, And I thought if I rowed for Australia, someone else would pay for a trip to go overseas because I had no money. And I thought, fantastic, someone else could pay for it. And so back in 1990, I got selected my first national Australian team. I thought this was so exciting. I was 21 or 22. And then they said, well, the World Championships that year are in Tasmania. So unfortunately, I had to, the Tasmanian girls, but not the European girls I was after. But anyway, so I went to
hello
Tasmania.
to all the Tasmanians that are watching tonight.
Hi, old Tassie. We love you, Tassie.
Not far off, Nick. Not far off, mate. Not far off.
So we raced at the World Championships, and we were unknown. This is my first time ever racing at a world-class international event. And I'm sitting at the starting line, and there's the East. This is when East and West Germany were still separate companies. And my colleagues, James Tompkins and Mick Mackay, were saying to me, well, there's the West Germans. They're the Olympic gold medalists from Seoul, and East Germans, they've been undefeated for, 10 years for whatever reason. But and I'm just so nervous. Anyway, we end up racing, and in the early stages of the heats, we won the heat against the favoured East Germans. And the journalist at the time who was covering the story said, "Oh, these four is awesome." And we kept racing, and then we won the gold medal. We won the world title, and next thing it was the awesome foursome, and that name has stuck now for for generations, and it's still synonymous. But maybe we don't know who's in the crew, but people still know the name Awesome Foursome as a sporting brand. So it's stuck a long length of time.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks to the German media. And why do you think you guys were so good over that time, just dominating? What was it that you were doing differently, do you think, or more of, or was it a body type, physical, coaching? What was it, do you think, that gave you the edge?
Look, I suppose you can't sugarcoat. I mean, all the athletes have come on before. You can't sugarcoat hard work. So there's hard work, right? So let's put that as a given. And I think the four of us as athletes, we were, I suppose, very fortunate to be at the right time, at the right place. We were similar personalities. We had similar ambitions that we wanted to be as good as we could be as athletes. But deep down, we had this great sense of confidence that if we were as the best we could be, that best is good enough to beat anyone else in the world. Now, we hadn't tested it a lot, but we sort of had this confidence to say, the combination just got together and just clicked. So I think once we had the initial combination of the four of us that just worked, then it was a combination of just working on it on a daily basis to say, well, how far can we take this? How far can we push it? And how far can we make sure that we have fun as athletes, but also push the envelope? Now, when we would race overseas, as an example, we would go into the heart of the European racing, which was often in either Germany or Italy or Switzerland. But we'd go into Switzerland, major European championships, and instead of being very, I suppose, anal about your preparation, we would bring in AFL football, and we would start having a kick as a warm-up, right? For our race, we'd have a kick-to-kick with the football. So we were laconic Aussies, right? So we'd having a kick, and then the Romanians would come in for a kick, and the Czech Republic back then, obviously, would come for a kick. And so we'd actually have this kick-to-kick, right, as our warm-up. And then we would jump in the boat, and then as soon as we got in the boat, we were just fiercely focused. So we had this great ability to have a great time off the water, but be particularly anal about our preparation and our skills and our commitment to the sport when we're on the water. So I think that combination made us a really good mix in terms of being good athletes, but also the longevity of our time at the top of the sport.
Yeah, I love it. Like, we're day 5 into this. We've still got so many amazing athletes to come on. And so far, every single person has mentioned 2 of those things that you just mentioned then, belief and fun. Yeah. And, I'm a big believer of both of those. You've got to have that balance of enjoying what you're doing. Yeah. Dawn Fraser was a big proponent of that, just saying you just got to enjoy it, you got to have fun. And then that real belief in yourself. I just want to know, I'm curious about how you connect when you're on the water, because you're basically looking at the back of each other's heads. So there's no eye contact, there's no hand slapping or bum tapping.
We actually look at each other's asses, to be honest, but that's fine. Look, it was one of the things, our rowing coach was a great rowing coach, but actually never rowed a rowing boat. And so one of the things we learned very on as athletes is how do we communicate with one another to get feedback? And so we use our senses around feel and speed. So when we were in, and I've heard a lot of swimmers say, that when they're on top of the water, they can just feel, and when Steph comes back on, she can talk about, they just feel fantastic. They're up on the water, they feel fantastic. And I suppose the same as the rowing boat. If we're on song and we're moving together, we're on top of the water, the boat moves so effortlessly, and we just cruise along. And then we decided that with our rowing coach, who didn't know what it felt like to row, but had a great eye on what movement would constitute really good boat movement. So we end up communicating to say, we'll tell him what we're feeling and he'll tell us what he's seeing. And then we'd sort of filter the feedback and go, well, how do we put that into some actions to go? How do we learn from that and make us go better? So we were constantly looking for this very simple analogy of just half an inch. Every time we took a stroke, we were trying to make our boat just run further underneath us by half an inch. And you can appreciate when we get to rowing over 2,000 metres, we take about 250 strokes. So we were trying to make each one of those strokes to make the boat go as furthest as we could every time we took a stroke. So we reviewed that. We didn't want to row hard. We wanted to row smart and technically efficient to be really good at what we did. So that's how we operated.
Amazing. I love that. It's a bit like relationships. I want to tell you how I'm feeling. you get the response, well, this is what I'm hearing and seeing. But no, look, it's true. It's true in everything. Steph, do you want to turn your camera back on?
She's back.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's the same. It's all about the feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like swimming in particular, because we don't have any way to see how we're going other than, you can kind of peripherally see where your other competitors are, but you can't see the time that you're going or if you're on track. You can't hear your coach telling you to go faster or slower. So a lot of our training is built around understanding what speed you're going and what that feels like to go that speed. So when we talk about performance and training, it is basically all on feel.
And you mentioned before that you were like 10 seconds behind the world record time, but you shaved that off in 2 years, right?
Yeah, it was
incredible.
A year and a half, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you plan that out backwards and say, look, by this time I want to be this speed, that speed, or did you just do the process every time and just see where it took you? Or
yeah, I mean, I was never into stats or looking at my competitors. Like my coach would always be pulling up, this competitor, this competition in America did this. And I was like, I don't care. It really didn't bother me what other people were doing if I was focused on myself. It was always good to get a guideline. But I liked that my coach sort of did that mental work and I could just really actually focus on myself. So in training, he would often give me benchmarks of what the best person was doing and what times they would be holding, or so I could get a guide as to how far away I was. But really, anything in performance, and as everybody would speak to in this webinar, it's you can do all the training in the world and hit all those benchmarks, but a great race or a great performance is always being able to put all the pieces of the pie together and execute it at the highest level with the most stress and the most nerves. So really, that's what you're practicing for. Everybody is a great athlete that's super fit and has worked really hard, but the best athletes can execute. And so I always found we were I was trying to hit the benchmarks in training, but then I was really just trying to put all of that aside and click into autopilot when the race would come and just let it evolve rather than trying to force it to come. And all of my best races were when I was in that kind of flow state, whereas definitely at my second Olympics, when I was going through injuries and I was nowhere near as physically fit, I was forcing it.
Yeah, totally.
And it just feels totally different.
Hey, Kerri, can I ask Steph a question? You talked about stats. I'm really interested now, you've finished swimming as a career. Do you look back on the stats in terms of Olympic history and how many Australian Olympic athletes since 1896 have won 3 Olympic gold medals at the 1 Olympic Games? Have you looked
I
at
don't know.
that? Because I think you're in a rarefied air there in terms of our historical Olympic representation.
I don't know. I'm not a stats gal. I'm sure you could tell me. And my coach loves to sort of remind me. I think it's also, there's like, I'd be interested in maybe, Kerri, your feedback, but also with swimming, there's a very big difference between 3 golds, but of which of them were individual and which of them were relay, and then which one ranks higher, because there's been quite a few athletes that have won 3 golds in one Olympics, but it's 1 individual, 2 relays. And so then you're like, which one takes hierarchy? I don't know.
Yeah, look, well, I'd have to say individual, I would think, because it's just up to you. You know, when you're in a bigger team.
Hang on, I got to put up with the team.
I'm not a team sport gal.
We've got Steph an individual, a team of 2, you a team of 4.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere in the middle, team of 2.
So Nick, you guys would have been the ones that took up all the space on the plane when they put us back in order of medals, and you guys would have taken up all the slots.
6'6" and 6'7".
Yeah.
We need the leg room.
Totally.
Hey, Steph, you know, talking about medleys, obviously you've got to be good at every stroke. Which was your best stroke? I think I know, because you'd won a 3rd gold medal with that. But no, was that freestyle not your best? Which was your best?
I was definitely a butterflyer first and foremost. Like, so when I was younger, my best stroke would change basically every week between butterfly and then backstroke, basically whatever I was like winning at the time of being 11 or 12. As I got older, sort of 15, I was pretty good at butterfly, pretty good at backstroke, and I was winning age nationals for butterfly, backstroke, and medley, but I wasn't really awesome at any one stroke. And at the time, butterfly was my best stroke and my best chance of getting on an Australian team. But at the time, the 2 girls, and they, as I said before, only take 2, were Patria Thomas and Susie O'Neill. So I was basically going to have to be the best in the world just to make it as an Australian on the team. And so my coach said to me that strategically, there was really no one in medley at all when it was in Australia. I was pretty good at all of them. And if we focused on actually training for medley, like, people think that you just sort of do a bit of every stroke and then that's what a medley is. Whereas really, to be a good medley swimmer at the international level, you're training the transition from butterfly to backstroke, the change of rhythm, the change of speeds and tempo. So we specifically trained for that, and that was really how I made it on to the team in the long run. And that was the only chance I had back in the day until really those 2 girls stopped and retired, and then I made it on for butterfly and freestyle in a couple of different things too.
Well, you basically saw an opportunity and you ran with it, you know. And that's
my coach saw it and we ran with it. Yeah,
your coach saw it. Obviously, coaches totally very much an important part of all of our success.
Absolutely.
What was it like? Like, okay, so 3 gold medals. Tell us what it was like, you know, before you went out onto the pool deck. You're waiting in that tunnel. Like, we hear a lot about the thoughts. Is there a little bit of argy-bargy with the other swimmers? Are you trying to like put them off their game, but you're trying to stay focused? Like, what sort of swimmer were you in the tunnel before?
In talking to other Olympians and from other sports as well, like that marshalling area was by far the worst part of competition for me. Like, even thinking back to it now just makes me so anxious and so nervous. Like, it's the worst feeling because you're trying to stay present and not get ahead of yourself, but you know that this intense, grueling, awful feeling is about to happen and it's going to be hard and it's going to hurt, and you kind of want it to be over, but then you're not trying to get ahead of yourself. So that marshalling area for me, I just hated it. And everyone had a different sort of style. I just figured out quite early on when I was younger, and I would go to lots of basic Brisbane, Queensland competitions. I'd trial different things like talking to people, listening to music, laughing, doing something on my own. And I just figured out that I didn't want to be distracted, so I didn't like talking to other people, and I didn't like relying on there being other people that I would get along with that would follow my style. So I just always listened to music and basically sat by myself, stretched. I had to keep moving. I couldn't sit down. So I was never in the argy-bargy, and I feel like that whole argy-bargy was definitely a testosterone-based thing and also a sprint thing. Like it's like the events that were over in such a quick amount of time that any little, deceptiveness that you could do would actually help you. Whereas in a 400 medley, I'm sorry, like that's not helping me at all.
Would you think that being a medley swimmer that you have a different mindset to someone who's just doing the one stroke?
Yeah, definitely. Because in a 400 medley, basically in a sprint race, you can't afford to have any mistake, because any little mistake, you've basically lost it. Whereas in a 400, the race goes for 4.5 minutes. So there's numerous times to like have screwed something up, but you could make up that ground. So in some ways it didn't have to be perfect, but you also had numerous chances to mentally like walk yourself out of it and get defeated. And so kind of trying to, okay, don't worry if they're further ahead, like there's still time. Like a lot of that mental really came into play over the longer races for me. Whereas in a sprint, there was really no chance to do anything.
And which of those 3 medals was your favorite, do you think?
For me, the 400, like it was my first race. It was the first day of the Beijing Olympics. I was the first gold medal of the pool, first gold medal of the Australian team. So it just holds like a lot of really significant memories for me. And because it was my first gold, like I think that there's always a real emotional attachment to that. I mean, I'm always asked this question, and it's like what I would imagine saying, like, who's your favorite child? Like, so 400 is very special, but the 200, like, which was swum, like, would have been today. I was really sick before that race, like really, really sick. And I was almost not going to swim it. So the fact that I sort of was able to work myself around even just doing it, thinking this is going to be a joke and I'm going to come last. And then to have won and, broken my own world record, it kind of just really instilled in me the fact that whilst obviously what we do is physical, such a huge part of it is mental. And when it gets to the big time, it really is a lot more mental than it is physical. And being able to pull it all together is really interesting. And Nick, I feel like what inspires me about what you guys do is I was the only one accountable for those actions, whereas you've got to rely on 3 other guys, like all being in the moment and all being ready at the same time. And that brings me a lot more anxiety because I like to just be accountable for myself.
Hey, Nick, on that, can I ask you, did you talk about before either of those gold medals, did you actually talk about it with the guys saying, this is it, this is our race, we're going to win gold? Did you actually verbalize it, or was it something that you kind of felt but couldn't say?
Steph made a really good point, and she's spot on. And to your question, Kerri, and I'll come to you, Steph, about your point, but we actually did. We did the classic, write on the whiteboard what we wanted to achieve. So write down your goals. And what was pleasing about the 4 of us, we all wrote down one word, and that was gold. And that's all we wrote down. And then we said, okay, so we're all on the same path. So I suppose we've all rode with or competed with athletes who go, yeah, we want to win the gold, but did they actually believe that they could? Are they just sucking it to please everyone? And I suppose what was unique about the 4 of us is we wrote it down, but we actually believed we were going to win it. But we just now had to work out how are we going to do it? What's the process? How do we get there? And one of the, Steph talked about being in her own space, and I heard Thorpe during the week talk about being in his own world before his competition. And you're right, team sports have to also think about what are their teammates doing and how do they respond to pressure. And the 4 of us worked out, not right at the beginning, but sort of midway through our time together, that we all operated differently under pressure, and we all handled stress differently. And one of the things that was setting us off in conflict as a team is because we were watching someone else deal with stress, and we're going, why are they doing that, dealing with stress? Why aren't they like me and being relaxed and cool? And laconic and they're uptight and agitated. Until we actually talk about it and go, well, this is how I am as a personality. This is how I prepare. So, and then as we got through, I suppose, to our second Olympics as a group, as the Awesome Foursome, when we got to the competition stage, one of our crew members was very agitated, up and about. We were going, great, he's getting ready to race. Where the others were pretty laconic, laid back, in our own thoughts, really conserving energy. And the guy who's very energetic looking at us and going, well, great, they're getting ready as well, but in their own way. So it's important for us to think about, if you're working as a team, really understanding the personalities of each member.
Yep.
So when it comes to the pressure situation and competing in the Olympics, now on the starting line, the Olympic final is from an athlete's point of view, more pressure than that. It's about how do you cope with your teammates and your surroundings, and how do prepare yourself and not be distracted. So, Steph, you were absolutely spot on about your comments earlier.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me.
It is, and it's been fascinating listening to all the different athletes and how they deal. And I've asked different types of questions, but generally the theme comes out about what type of person there are around, what type of athletes, and everyone has their own way of dealing with all sorts of things.
Kerri, can I take a quick question, a quick story, and I'll be very quick, because I don't want to be like Andrew Gage and take all the time. If he's listening. Crazy. But at the 96 Olympic Games, a bomb went off in Centennial Park, and that was the morning of our race. And so, we prepared like you do as an athlete. We had a time to get up, get ready, and we were woken up a couple of hours earlier than we thought. There was a bomb had gone off, and we were evacuated from our accommodation. And literally, we were going, we were shoveled out to a security area. We had our bags packed, and so I suppose you talk about dealing with pressure. We were going, morning of our final, bombs gone off, absolute chaos going around us, and we just stayed centered and really focused. And when we got to the rowing course an hour or two later to start warming up and getting ready to competition, we were the most relaxed and focused we've ever been. So this adversity that going on around us, we would just blink it away and say, let's not worry about it. Let's just keep really focused on our emotions and what we're here to do. And it was a really good test as we got to that stage under pressure. No matter what was happening around us, we could just stay focused and stay relaxed.
Such great advice too with what's going on in the world now, that if we focus on all the negativity, the media, the numbers, the this, the that, it doesn't mean that we don't feel it, we don't believe it and all that sort of stuff. It just means that if we keep focusing on that, nothing will get done. Nothing, we can't move forward. So great story. Now, I know after 96, you had a lot of trouble with your back. Didn't make it to 2000 as an athlete, but you made it as a flag bearer, one of 8 incredible legends to carry the flag. I watched the video today. We couldn't put it up. It's just too long. But there was a point, I did a screenshot, bottom left. Looks like Michael Wendon's going like this. What were you yelling to him?
Raise the flag. Now, it was a great honour. John Coates had invited me to carry the IOC flag at the end of the ceremony. With the Aussies had just come through. They were marshalled. Yes, I didn't go. I would love to have gone my third Olympics, but I just couldn't physically get there. And it was a great. I'd never met Murray Rose, who's on the top left there. What a legend swimmer, and Marjorie Jackson. She's like your grandmother you always wanted. She's such a lovely woman, and I became really good friends with Marjorie. And when she was the governor of South Australia, I'd often pop in if I was there for business, and we'd go and have a cup of tea, and in the governor's headquarters, and it was just fantastic relationship building. But Marjorie had just had a back operation just before, so a couple of weeks before the opening ceremony, and so we were supposed to do a lap around the stadium. We only up doing, going down the 100 metres straight, but that was enough, to soak up the atmosphere. The Aussies were in the stadium. And I watched the highlights the other night on Channel 7, and my middle daughter, who was born just after the Sydney Olympic Games, she was looking at the opening ceremony, never seen it before, and goes, those Aussies, I love being an Aussie. They're just so fantastic. They're watching the lawnmowers and the dancing on tin roofs and going, this is just fantastic. What a great time in our lives. So I was very lucky to be there. I'm very privileged to be there. wasn't an athlete, but what a great time it was. What a great
Pretty proud. Pretty proud. I bet you felt like an athlete, just an older athlete.
An unfit athlete, yes.
Now, obviously, if fast forward a few more, almost a decade, a bit more than a decade, and you find yourself in London,
Yes.
2012, as the first chef de mission for a long time, leading the team. John Coates appointed you. How did that feel? Because I know even in the run up to the Olympics, there was, you know, a fair few challenges. Like there were the gun wielding swimmers, a weightlifter accused of extortion, disgruntled steeplechasers, and a boxer crying foul in a drug sting. So there's a lot going on before you even got there.
And they're the ones you know about. There's lots of other you don't know about as well. Again, you know, you're right. So John Coates had been the chef de mission for 6 Olympic Games, and no one else had a chance to, I suppose, lead the team. And so I'd been on the board of the Australian Olympic Committee for a number of years by then. I led the team to the Youth Olympic Games in Singapore, the first ever in 2010. And so I suppose and I went to the Winter Olympics, and I was there when Stephen Bradbury won his gold medal. What a story that was. That's for another time. And anyway, I got appointed to the role, and I did say I was very eager to learn from John. I said, John, you know, I need to learn from you what you've done over the last, 30 odd years leading the team. And his advice to me, he said, well, Nick, just don't stuff it up. Right? That's what he said. So I had to develop my own way. And I remember there was a starter for the 1956 Olympic Games, who I suppose started the Australian Olympic Committee back in the 50s, a guy called Julius Patching. And I remember having a coffee or a cup of tea with him beforehand. He was the chef de mission and been involved in the Olympics for a long time. And I said to him, how do I do this? What's the best to be a leader of this most amazing team? And he goes, you just got to be there for the athletes, right? No matter what happens, right, make sure you're there to do everything you can to help and support the athletes. So along the journey, I took that into stead and said, everything I tried to do leading that team was about making sure I looked after and protected the athletes. Were there some controversies? Yes, there were. With some issues. I was actually looking at something online today. Great, Russell Mark and I are great mates, right? And we were before the games, and there was this storm blown up about nothing really, but it was about should he and his wife, who were both Olympic athletes, share the same room together. And I just imagine, that at the time got about a week's media coverage. I'm going, it's, why? And so I realised that I'm in the spotlight here. Every single issue by the media who were there trying to cover something, it was always going to be an issue. And I also realised that we were on the world stage, so the world were watching Australia, and they were watching what we did. And so we'd always have international press coming to all the press conferences, trying to report what was going on with Australia. Obviously, the rivalry between Great Britain and Australia, and obviously Great Britain hosting a very, very successful games. Probably rivals. The only games that possibly could rival Sydney as one of the best, games ever. So it was a most amazing time, and I love just being there, and I love trying to do what I could to help the athletes and be there for the athletes. So as I said, there's lots of stuff you heard about. There's lots of stuff you haven't heard about, which and most of it I won't repeat. But it's in the so those athletes, it's in the vault.
That generally means you did your job well.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you were like the host of an Olympic reality show. Obviously those pictures were you in the media, but you were talking to the media, multiple times a day.
Well, what's interesting about it is, I was going to say quickly that, there's, when you get to the Olympic Games, there's something like 25 different sports that come to compete. And each of those sports prepare in their own way. The swimming team would go off and prepare their own way, do their own thing. And so what you were trying to do when the team came together, not only were athletes sometimes had never met another athlete before on a different sport, but it's trying to bring the athletes together, but then also to try to blend the cultures of the swimming team, the rowing team, the hockey team, the badminton team, table tennis team, to try and blend them in to make sure they were on the same page in terms of their values and their culture. So it's a really interesting and challenging role. But as I said, to be around that calibre of athletes was just a great honour.
So I just want you to describe for the viewers, because we know what it's like when you're in the village and you're just mulling around in between your events, or you haven't competed yet, you're still waiting and training, when another Australian wins a gold medal, like describe how that goes down in the kind of Australian area.
Steph, do you want to start? It's on mute.
Go for it. You can go for it.
I think it's exhilarating for the team. Every athlete, looks. There's two components for it. The swimming team are always first off, in the first week, and the swimming team have historically set the mood for the Australian team. So if the swimming team are up and winning medals, which they did all through, the 90s and the 2000s, with likes of Steph and Thorpe and Kerri Perkins and Grant Hackett and Susie and you name them, they set the mood for the whole team. And if the swimming team are slightly off in terms of medal expectations, has an impact on the whole team. And it does put more pressure on the swimmers too. It's about performing to set I suppose the mood of and the excitement of the games. But so every time that an athlete does win a gold medal or a medal or performs exceptionally well in whatever capacity, they're embraced by the team. They're embraced. They're celebrated. They're acknowledged. They're supported when they can. The Olympic Village, and Steph's been to many of them. It's 10,000 athletes of the most amazing athletes coming together from all different countries, all different nationalities, all beliefs, all religions, coming together as an amazing village environment, and it was just to walk around and watching athletes, having lunch or dinner with various profiled athletes. It was just fantastic fun.
Well, I remember in Atlanta, Natalie and I, we were just so used to walking around in our bikini. We got off the bus from practice and we're still in our bikini with our backpack on, walking through the village, and we're passing this guy with a pole vault on his shoulder, and he's just walking past you like, g'day, g'day. Oh. Yeah. So, Steph, you made it to London. You probably don't want to talk about it. Injuries. My third Olympics, I'm
not my favorite
about either.
Yeah.
I say that I won a bronze, a gold, and then a tracksuit. So,
yeah.
How was your tracksuit in London?
Shit. I remember speaking with Kenny Wallace, and I know you'll have him on soon, but we both won in Beijing, and we'd experienced the high and of course of your dream and this amazing thing that you've been working towards, and you finally get it, but also everything that goes along with that, the media and the attention and everything. It was just a huge whirlwind. And then we both went to London 4 years later, and we both got our famous fourth, which is the worst position you can get, because it's nice try, but you didn't really get anything for that. And when we both came fourth, I feel like we both really connected over the fact we'd had this similar experience. And it's hard when you were capable of doing it better, especially when, everyone's always going to have an excuse. I don't really see there as being excuses, but when I look at London and coming fourth, it was an incredible achievement for the work that I had been able to put into it. I really didn't deserve fourth. But probably just a testament to having had the experience of competing at an Olympics and kind of knowing what it would be like. And it wasn't so new and exciting anymore. I was used to, the food hall and what the feeling would be like in the marshalling area and the press and everything like that. And I just tried not to get too ahead of myself. But going back to, Nick, what you were saying before, for me, some of my favorite memories of the Olympics are the food hall, because especially in the first week of when the swimming is on, really we're at the pool basically the whole day, so I don't really get to see the other athletes competing, and the only time we really get to interact is in the food hall. And it was just so awesome to be able to especially the sports that probably don't get much notoriety, the shooting or something that we don't really watch all the time, and just getting to interact and hear their stories. And I feel like everyone comes and supports everybody else, and it's a really nice environment to have if you've had a great race, or if you haven't, and you've just always got somebody that has lived and breathed that feeling and just gets you. They just get it. You don't have to explain. They know exactly what you're feeling, and that's comforting in both scenarios.
Yeah, totally agree. That happened to us in '96 when we lost our semi-final, and I talked to some of the hockey men's players, and they said, oh, we came fourth in the previous Olympics. We'd lost our semi and we just never got over it. We couldn't even perform in the bronze medal playoffs. So having someone to just share that experience with me, it was like, okay, we're not going to do that. And the funny thing is, Nick, too, we actually played our bronze medal game on the day the bomb went off as well.
Right.
But our coaching staff, they chose not to tell us. So Natalie was only 21, so pretty young. I mean, as a swimmer, that's young, but she was pretty young, and so they told us after. But I think it was a good thing that they didn't tell us at the time, just because of who we were and what we were up against. But yeah, lovely. Now you both have done some pretty amazing things, obviously in retirement. Nick, you've decided to go more the corporate route. Leadership, all that sort of administration in sport. You've done some amazing things. Steph, more an entrepreneur. What do you think makes an athlete a good entrepreneur or a good corporate type person? Maybe I'll ask both of you because of what you've done. Nick first and then Steph.
Well, I came from an amateur sport, so I had no choice other than to, and all rowers do, make sure they can have a career to fall back on when they finish their passion of chasing sport. So I actually think there's a lot both athletes and corporates can learn from one another. I'm in a very large corporate at the moment, and we do things terrifically well around our values and culture. And I'm actually saying to our corporate leaders, sport could actually learn so much from the corporate leaders in the way we make decisions. Conversely, the athletes have developed this great sense of stoicness around their preparation and their focus and their commitment and dedication. And that is a learning environment that sometimes corporate doesn't have. So there's this great marriage between the two of how do we learn from one another? Not so much we're the experts, we'll come and teach you and you just listen. And so I think athletes have got a strong role to play in the corporate environment. Every athlete I've worked with or have engaged, what I know straight away is they're committed, they're dedicated, they're hardworking, they're very focused. Right? If they don't have the technical skills, that's fine. We can teach that. But they've got the foundations that everyone wants of just good people who are hardworking and committed. So there's a great learning, I think, between both sides of athletes and corporates.
Yeah.
I would agree with basically everything you just said. I think the other thing is too, athletes basically are at risk every day of putting themselves at risk. Like there is no guarantees in sport at all. Yeah. And so I think that for me translates a lot over to entrepreneurship, but also business in the sense that you can have an epic preparation and tick all the boxes and get nothing for it. Mm-hmm. Vice versa, basically, as swimmers, no one gives a crap for 4 years until the Olympic rolls around. So you're kind of in the background doing your own thing, focusing, not getting any external validation from all of that hard work. And then you stand up one day and get a gold medal and people just think like it came out of nowhere. And I feel there's a lot of similarities with business. And so just that mindset of not needing validation, not needing to see results, but just knowing you're on the path and that if you put all the work in and you believe in yourself and what you're creating, that something will come of it, and just like grinding it out without that validation. And honestly, in today's world with social media, like everyone's after a quick hit and everyone's after a quick success. And I think that's where athletes really win in the corporate world, and really great corporate owners and managers. Like there's so many similarities.
And so you obviously, you grounded out pretty hard on that show with Mark Boris, Celebrity Apprentice.
Oh my God, I'm such a baby.
And then also I did read that you said, I'm never going to do Dancing with the Stars, but you did something else as well.
That's why I did the Real Dirty Dancing. That was a lot of fun last year, actually, because it was like not a competition. It was about raising money. And so it was like a nice philanthropic kind of fun thing to do. And some of these experiences that I've had in TV, it's like once in a lifetime, in the sense that it was like filming this Real Dirty Dancing. We went over to Virginia and we stayed where the lodge was that they filmed Dirty Dancing, and we got to learn from professionals how to dance. And Like, I would never do that in my life. So it was really fun to do something just out of my comfort zone and, you know, put yourself in a different environment and see how you go.
I don't know about you, Nick, but it's been my dream as a female to always be that one that like flies up into the hands of, you know, my partner. Nick, have you dreamed about catching your wife like that?
Nick.
I caught her a long time ago. I do call my fellow rower who was coming on, James Tompkins. You actually need to ask this question. He was on the Dancing with the Stars. And he's quite famous because he was the first episode of Dancing with the Stars. He was the first person to be voted off Dancing with the Stars ever.
Right. So that's why I didn't do that show. You couldn't get voted off the show I did. So I was like, that's fine. There's no losers.
Totally. I'm with you, Steph.
Good
You
call.
picked the right one.
Yeah. I've only done 2 reality shows and I won them both. So I think I'm just going to drop out here. I'm done.
2 gold medals.
Yeah.
Now, guys, we could talk all night, and I would love to, but we've got this 60-second sprint where I'm just going to rattle off a bunch of questions, and we've got 60 seconds if you want to give 1 or 2 word answers. You don't know what's coming. Who wants to go first?
I suck at these. Yeah, I'll go first.
Okay. All right. Steph, are you ready? 60 seconds.
No.
On the clock.
Okay.
What were you visualizing the night before your races?
Oh, nothing.
Did you sleep?
Just, I was watching movies, TV shows, zoning out, not visualizing.
What sport would you have done if swimming wasn't an option?
Hockey.
What's your unique superpower
Oh.
in life?
Shit. Empathy?
Oh, nice. Are you a good or bad loser?
Bad.
Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
Kobe Bryant.
And who would you like to meet?
Serena Williams, for sure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Here's a personal question. Did you wear makeup on the deck? Because you always look so beautiful when you was
No, there was no point. It was just going to wash off anyway. No, I just did earrings. That was like the only thing I could do.
How many swimsuits do you think you've owned in your lifetime?
150.
And last question. If you had to sell one of your medals, how much would you sell it for?
Oh, 500,000.
Right, there it is. It's for sale, 500K.
You're getting the relay one because it's my least favorite.
Don't tell the girls that. Okay.
That's okay. No, but come on.
Are you ready, Nick?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. How good were the after parties?
Awesome.
Were you ever close to competing in any other sport?
Not Olympic level, no, but I love playing tennis and basketball.
And cycling, right?
And cycling, but not yet.
Olympic tattoo, yes or no?
No.
Where do you keep your medals, if you don't mind us asking?
They've actually been at the National Sports Museum for the last 15 years, so they're safe and people get to see them. I'd lose them if they were at my house.
Favourite Olympic moment other than your own?
I remember watching and I can't remember her name, was at the Athens Olympics when the Greek sprinter won the 110 hurdles. And she wasn't meant to win. Gail Devers fell over at the last hurdle and the Greek girl just came through and won the gold medal. And the look on her face was just priceless. I love an underdog story and one of them.
Just wasted 20 seconeds. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
What was your favourite food in the food hall?
Well, carbohydrates because we needed lots of carbs. So
fries.
No, I didn't get that.
McDonald's.
Actually, I took my kids to the London Olympics and we talked about it last night and they said the only thing they remember is McDonald's in the food hall. So there we go.
Okay, I've got one more for you because this is a good one. Who was your least favourite roommate?
Well, I had one roommate, which I won't say, used to snore a lot and used to put the light on most of the night when I was trying to sleep. So that person went on to row at least for 5 Olympics and he was a good athlete, but he was a lousy roommate. So,
is his name James?
No.
He did 5.
That wasn't true. That wasn't true. So it's one more.
Oh, okay.
No,
Got it. Okay. All right, well, we're going to get Cookie back on because I know there's been a few questions. I'm not sure whether they've all been answered. Are there any that haven't been answered that we need to just...
Yeah, there's a couple here. Meredith, up for you, Stephanie. How was the transition after retirement from swimming?
Awful, really awful. I struggled a lot. There was really, at the time, like not a lot in the way of transitional support. I feel like only recently through, unfortunately, a lot of people really struggling with mental health has it become a priority to focus on. So I really struggled. I did a lot of personal development, a lot of Tony Robbins seminars, and that helped me a lot, but it probably took a solid four years.
Yeah, wow. Nick, I've got a question from Meredith as well. Did you or your teammates have any superstitions when competing?
No, actually, we didn't. We're pretty
Boring.
And no, I think, every athlete goes through routine, and so we want to go through a routine, but we didn't have to wear a pair of undies on a certain way, or
Come on.
No, we're pretty clean on that front.
Okay, mate, this one's actually a really serious question from Brendan. Gold medals are great, but surely it was the fruit commercials are your real career highlight.
Absolutely. So we did 9 fruit commercials.
What?
I think the biggest issue with those fruit commercials was James Tompkins is a bit of a hog, and he loves the spotlight. So he was always the front singing away, and it caused a bit of niggle with the other teammates who wanted to be in the front of the camera instead of at the behind. So, but they were the best fun. We did 9 or something like that, and we should have had shares in Golden Valley Fruit.
Seriously,
so many tins of fruit. That it wasn't funny. So bad business. We needed some of Steph's entrepreneurial skills.
I'm the same now. Those diva earrings I wore during my race, I reckon I sold millions of pairs of those things. Where were my royalties?
Question for you. I'm going to go with Steph. With hindsight and experience, would you prepare yourself any differently for Olympics now? And if so, and why?
No, not at all. I would do the same thing. Like, don't break something that's working. The only difference would be it was probably easier to switch off then, whereas it's so easy to be accessible, like with social media and emails now, that I think it would be more about keeping the swimming the same, probably just managing the extra stuff differently. That's different and new.
Yeah,
Totally.
Tough too.
That's it for questions. Before I hand back over to you, Kerri, I just want to say thank you, everyone, as well. Please make sure you make a donation to the Australian Sports Foundation.
Yeah.
60,000 clubs are struggling at the moment due to COVID and could be shutting their doors within 6 months if because memberships are down, sponsorships are down, and that is the next generation Olympian. So please make sure that you make a donation in the office area right now. And over to you, Kerri, for just the final words.
Thanks, Cookie. I just want to thank you two both so much. I love you so much. Thank you for coming
Thanks,
on,
Kerri.
giving us your time and giving everyone in Australia a real taste of what it's like to be an Olympic champion and just hang around in the Olympic Games. I want to leave you both with something. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. So good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks so much.
Lovely hearing from you, Kerri. See you,
Everyone.
Nick. Bye.
Thanks, Steph. Bye.